For my second blog, I wanted to talk about film a bit, and originally I had planned on composing a top 10 list, my favorite films of last year. But I found as I was making the list, like there was one film on the list that I felt like was more interesting than others, and that was Exit Through the Gift Shop by Banksy. So I figured I'd spend the blog sort of discussing this film and what I liked about it and what I took away from it as a viewer. First of all, if you haven't seen the film, it's essentially on street art and it's a documentary, but I use that term kind of loosely. It's been termed by some as being a prankumentary, like people aren't sure whether or not it was an actual documentary or if he was just trying to dupe us as the audience. So it's kind of stirred up a bit of controversy. But it basically details the street art movement, which is really hip nowadays. Like I even took a art class last semester, and the professor, you would be surprised how much time we spent in that class talking about Shepard Fairey and Banksy. I was kind of surprised that the movement has grown as hip and as mainstream as it has. So to see a documentary about it come out at this time seems only right. Basically, I feel like the film was kind of a critique on Hollywood and just art entertainment in the United States in general. I thought it was very interesting that he chose the medium of film to go about it. I think, as far as I know, like this is the first time I remember seeing a Banksy piece that was in which he uses film. So I think just the fact that he chose that medium tells you that, and that the majority of the film is set in Los Angeles, tells you that this film is kind of tied in with Hollywood. I think that it's interesting that when Mr. Brainwash goes to do his art show and he gets his face on the cover of LA Weekly, all of his pieces are auctioned off. Like, it's a massive turnout, and he didn't even do the majority of the art, and the art that he did have there was basically copycats of previous Banksy works. Like, it was that whole bit to me, the whole second half really was not a documentary. I feel like the first half was definitely documentary, showing you authentic street art, but the second half, I feel like it wasn't a documentary. Just the whole second half of the movie, I even discussed this with my brother. We both felt like there was just something off about it. There was something different. And I think it's clear that second half wasn't a real documentary. I think that what Banksy was doing was trying to make a statement on Hollywood and entertainment, because Mr. Brainwash really wasn't all that talented, and his art wasn't really all that great. It looked like just everything else, something that Banksy might have done or Shepard Fairey might have done. It wasn't unique. Like, he wasn't bringing anything new to the table, yet he rose so fast to fame just because his name was buzzworthy. He was on the cover of LA Weekly, so I feel like he's kind of saying, like, that's drawing some parallels to Hollywood and entertainment. How people come out of nowhere, aren't really that talented, but just off of how buzzworthy their name is, and get all this fame and they get all this critical acclaim, when in reality, very little of it is actually warranted. Another thing that I felt like Banksy was trying to say here was, I think he was trying to make a statement about us as consumers, that we can be duped into thinking something is good. Like, we trust advertisements, we trust commercials, we trust even critic reviews rather than actually making the decision for ourselves. Because these people that turn out for the art show, they put their trust into publications like LA Weekly, into even like things like Banksy's quote about Mr. Brainwash, and threw all their trust into this, and they bought into it. They bought into the hype, and I think that sort of translates well to us as consumers, because if we're watching commercials, watching advertisements, and a company or a brand, something becomes buzzworthy enough, that makes us trust it a bit more, I feel like. And I think that he's trying to say that we don't think for ourselves as much as we could when, but most importantly, I think that when it comes to this piece, I think that Banksy's just having a lot of fun with it. I think that he finds it kind of funny how popular, how mainstream street art has become, that it's selling as much as it is. It's gone from something that was sort of an underground phenomenon to something where you see it everywhere. And I think he finds it funny that he can get these wealthy people who don't really know that much about the culture or the street art movement, yet are willing to shell out so much of their cash for a piece of art that maybe they don't understand fully. Like I think that he feels like that's funny, and I think that his sense of humor comes across in the film. I think it's a very fun, lighthearted film at its heart. The Disneyland sequence with the Guantanamo Bay prisoner was absolutely hilarious. Some of the funniest, maybe the funniest 10-minute clip that I've seen in a film this year was Banksy at Disneyland. Like, that was a hilarious clip, and the movie really does have a lighthearted tone. I think that above all else, Banksy, he is trying to make a statement, but at the same time, it's a fun movie, and I think that he ultimately just had a blast shooting it. So ultimately, this is a film that I found highly enjoyable, very original. I've never seen anything like it. Completely different than every other film that I've seen in last year. And I'd strongly encourage everyone to see it. You've never seen anything like it. It's definitely a treat to watch. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. What did you think of it? Was it a real documentary? Was it a faux documentary? What did you take away from it? I'm interested. Let me know. Thanks.